Hey, Wicked Dick here with some glorious news. It is a Tuesday evening, September 10th, and we are less than 3 weeks away from the regular season in hockey in the NHL. Oh, thank God. I'm so sick of baseball. And as a Browns fan, we will not speak of last weekend's football games. Not a word. Uh, today we're looking at Wicked Deke's Kings 2019-20 wish list. And the wish list has changed quite a bit from last year, but the basic idea here is hopefully the Kings are going to be better, but maybe not so good that they would hurt their rebuilding effort. So let's look at number one. T-Mac makes a difference. So I think this one's pretty much a slam dunk. Shooting the proverbial fish in the barrel, because obviously last year we had the "Show Me Your Willie" experience, and it was bad. Funny thing about Willie was that I didn't even know that the Kings had hired him, and I was already getting emails from people in Vancouver, some friends up there, with a lot of laughing text in it. Apparently, Willie wasn't that highly regarded. I didn't know this, but apparently it's true. Willie thought that one way to improve the Canucks power play was to take one of the Sedins off of the power play. Remember the Sedin twins in that power play? That power play that more or less was at the top of the league every year. While they were in their prime, the one that clicked over between like 20 and 25% every year. And they had that whole weird twins thing going where like they could just magically sense each other around the ice. They didn't have to actually look at each other. And one would flip a, skipping pass that blew by three opponents and resulted in a slam dunk goal by the other twin. Yeah, that whole freaky thing. Yeah, Willie thought separating them was a good idea. And then, of course, we had one of the great moments in Kings history. I'm almost tempted to say better than the Cups, but of course not that good. But it was that magic moment that one evening. I think the Kings were playing the Canes. I can't even remember because I was laughing so hard. And they had the goal scored on Jonathan Quick, and maybe he was interfered with, maybe not. Personally, I didn't really think he was, but it was close. And then Mr. Quick skating over to the bench, where he lit Willie on fire, I believe is the Latin phrase. And you could literally see smoke coming off of Willie's eyebrows as Mr. Quick, I believe, created some new curse words. He was not happy. And you knew two things right at that moment. One, Willie had no credibility in the locker room. And two, the Kings were well and truly screwed for the rest of that season. Willie, wow. Don't know whose idea that was, but that was clearly not the right choice. And so we flash forward to this year, and we have Todd McClellan, the king of the PowerPoint presentation. The man can speak. I have no idea if he can actually coach, but I was ready to buy a timeshare from him. So it'll be interesting to see, what impact he has. Now, I think the fact that he's actually a real coach and has an idea of what's really going on in the NHL will probably help. One of the big benefits with him that isn't really talked about nearly enough, in my opinion, is the fact that he jived Yanni to come in and coach the defense. No, not Yanni with the weird flute thing. Nope, the guy that's actually the defensive coach who did some good things with the much-hated Ducks and, didn't do great with the Oilers, but frankly, who could coach defense with the Oilers? I mean, Jesus himself couldn't get that goals against average down. So anyways, those two guys are probably going to make a difference. How big of a difference? Well, kind of depends on how the veterans are going to play, doesn't it? But to see the coaches make a difference of 5 to 10 points, I don't think it's unreasonable, because I think that's just how screwed up the situation was last year. If nothing else, you have a feeling that McClellan is going to make sure that the practices are not quote unquote pathetic. Wish number 2, the Utes, that they actually play. Now, we've all been following the Kings as ardent Kings fans. I'm sure you've been following everything said around the draft, and that was said at the state of the franchise and has been leaked and suggested here and there. And all you hear is that Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille have had an epiphany, that they spent an evening out in the desert at an Indian reservation taking peyote and sitting in an Indian prayer circle. And they now realize the veterans, they're not the way to go anymore. They're past due. They had their run. It's all over. It's time for the prospects, damn it. And that sounds great until you go look at the roster. So go ahead, open another window, pull up Cap Friendly, pull up the Kings page, and start looking at our roster. you're going to notice something pretty quick. All the veterans are still here. The only two who are gone are, of course, Muzzin and the Toronto trade. As much as I have a negative view towards Rob Blake, I do have to congratulate him on that. He clearly picked the pocket of Dubas. And Dion, who was bought out. Not a big surprise there. But that's it. So where are all these youths going to play, particularly in the forward lines? Think about it. In the forwards, we still have Brown, Kopitar, Carter, Kovalchuk, Lewis, and Toffoli. That's pretty much top six. Maybe one or two of them play on the third line, but they're taking up a lot of space. Then you're going to have Clifford on the fourth line. Quite frankly, Clifford should probably be playing on the damn first line. He was probably our best left winger last year. But we're talking, 6, 7, depending on how you count it, 8 veteran forwards right there. So where exactly are all these kids going to play? Not entirely clear to me how this is going to work. And let's keep in mind that in the past, when the Kings have said the youth are going to pay, like they said last year, we ended up seeing things like Brodzinski and Wagner coming up, and they're getting 7 to 9 minutes a night. Now, I understand you don't want to rush prospects, but it seems to me a little unfair to say to some of these kids, obviously in Brodzinski's case, here's 7 minutes a night, but we're not happy with you because you're not scoring. You got to give these kids more time. And again, I get back to why wasn't Lewis traded? And I don't dislike Lewis, but if you're telling me Jared Anderson-Dolan is going to have reduced time on ice because Lewis is taking up some of that time, well, one of them has to go, and it's not Anderson-Dolan. The Kings, I know this is breaking news. The Kings are not going to win the cup this year. They're not a credible cup contender. They're not a cup contender in any way, shape, or form. Why do we have all these vets? Now I realize you can't trade some of them because they have low value or no value at all. But nonetheless, you look at that roster and where are these kids going to play? Now defense is different, obviously, with Muzzin gone and with Dion bought out. But you look at that defense and you still have Doughty, Martinez, and Forbort, and it looks like they're going to be all three of them in the top 2 pairings. So where, again, are all these kids going to play? Now, Bjornfoot, maybe if he comes up, is he going to play, in the third pairing? I mean, you can see them kind of filter some of the kids in, but this big statement from the Kings that we're going with youth. No, you're not. Not really. At least not for another year. Now, this leads us to the third wish that I have for the season, and that is that the Kings start strong. And by the Kings starting strong, I mean the veterans start strong. Toffoli. I think we can all agree that Toffoli is going to be absolutely the best he's ever been in the first half of the season. Why? Because it's his contract year. He has to produce this year. He has to score goals. The Kings always saying Toffoli's a 30-goal scorer. No, he's not. He scored 30 once. He's a 16 to 22-ish goal scorer. With the occasional really bad year like last year where he scored 13. Toffoli, to me, is a guy you need to move because you can bring back assets for him. If he scores 15 goals in the first half this year, or God forbid, maybe 20, you can trade him. He's still young. You could trade him to a team that needs scoring in the playoffs and get probably quite a few picks, maybe some prospects. And that's what the Kings need to be doing. They need to be accumulating all these things because the rebuild's happening. It's going to take 3 or 4 years. And these guys are all going to be older. They say build around Kopitar. Really? He's 32 right now. I don't know when he turns 33, but I think it's pretty soon. And in 3 years, he's going to be 35 or 36. Go look at the NHL teams and tell me how many productive centers there are that are 35 or 36. The answer is 1. There was 1 last year, and that was Miku Kovu, I pronounced his name wrong, up in Minnesota. And I think he ended up blowing out his knee, and he's more or less done now. So we need to be thinking about youth, getting more prospects, more picks, creating a big group of prospects. So all these kids come up at once and, we go 82-0 for about 4 seasons straight, sweep through the playoffs, win the cup 4 years in a row, and the NHL closes down out of shame. That's what we want. So the hope is, Carter, I don't know, maybe the zombie apocalypse is over and he returns to being a human being and actually plays well. He's now 2 years away from his injury. Maybe that'll help. Also, he's got to be pretty embarrassed after last year, you would think. Quick. Not a great year last year. I'm a Jonathan Quick fan. full disclosure. But if maybe he could actually start playing well again, have a strong first half, maybe you trade him to a team that thinks it's a cup contender, except for what it's got in goal, Calgary. And you start moving these guys out, getting prospects and picks back. And is that going to hurt us, in the second half of the season? Yeah, it would. And you know what? That's good because, honestly, we need to suck for a couple of years. We need to get more prospects, more picks, and a better quality of prospect. When we were picking in the 20s, we were getting guys like Kempe. And when you're picking in the teens or in the top 10, you're getting guys like Turcotte. And we need more Turcottes, less Kempes. That's just the way it is. That's how you rebuild it. And that brings us to the fifth wish, which, of course, is Blake and Luke's delusions. This only works if Blake and Luke stick to the plan. If we get to February and the Kings are, let's say, in the 8th playoff position, they're right on the edge there, Blake needs to be trading away veterans. One of the things that is very frustrating with the Kings is you hear them talk about, well, we have a chance to make the playoffs. Who cares? The goal is not to make the playoffs. The goal is to win cups. Who cares if you make it to the playoffs in the first round and then you play, the top seed in the West, whoever that is, St. Louis, let's say. And St. Louis just pounds you into the ground, sweeps you or beats you 4-1. What have you achieved? Nothing. The goal is to build up a bunch of talent so that when it all comes together and you're moving forward, you get into the playoffs and you start charging forward. And if you want to see a team that's done this, and it just pains me to say it because I never thought I would say it about this organization, the team that has done this is the Rangers. Go look at the Rangers roster and their prospects. As we all remember, a couple of years ago, they sent out a letter to their season ticket holders and their fans saying, we're going to suck for the next couple of years, but it's going to pay off. Trust us. And very few people trusted them because the Rangers, they make all these weird, strange decisions. But they followed through. They traded away a bunch of their vets, and they got high picks and first-round picks and this, that, and the other. And they brought in a bunch of youth. And go look at that roster now. Holy shnikey. They are getting ready to go on a run. Because when you look at that roster, in fact, let me just pull the damn thing up so I can start telling you who some of these players are. Now, they've drafted well. They've used draft picks to trade for other players. And then, of course, they signed Panarin. Well, do you think Panarin was going to New York because they thought they were going to suck for another 5 years? No. Now, mind you, he wants to go to New York and he wants the money, but, everybody gets tired of sucking. So they have Panarin, obviously. And then they obviously got lucky and got Kako, stupid lottery. But they've also got a bunch of other kids that are coming up that are pretty good. With forwards, they have their first round pick from a year ago, Kravitsov, the Russian kid who scores like a maniac, and is actually pretty big. He's 19. He's probably going to be on the team this year. Then you start looking at defense. Well, on going back forwards, they've got Brandon Lemieux, who's a good, obnoxious third, fourth liner guy. They got Elias Anderson, who's a good center prospect. Philippe, I have no idea how you pronounce his last name. Chudul, Chapakubre, whatever. They've got Buchnevich, Kreider will be traded, but they've got some talent coming, and probably not this year. They're going to be young this year, and they still have holes, don't get me wrong, but they're well along on the rebuild. And you look at their defense, and they've got some impressive stuff there. They traded for Fox, Adam Fox. He's going to be really good. They've got Trouba, who they also picked up. I'm not as big a Trouba fan as other people, but the kid's 25. He's still young. And so they have these guys in goal. I know everybody talks about Lundqvist, but he's 37 and he's nearing the end. But they picked up this Russian kid, Shesterkin, I think is his name. And the kid's good. The kid's really good. And so they have a bunch of this youth coming up, and they're making the turn, and their kids are playing. And Rangers went through some rough periods last year, but they had those kids playing. And that's what the Kings need to do. They need to suck for a couple of years, pick up some high-end talent, so that in 3 or 4 years, when these kids are coming up and all coming together, you have this wave of cheap talent coming along that you can use to make some serious cup runs. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Rangers actually make the playoffs this year. And I know I said that's not important, but that's how far their rebuild has moved along. So they got a pretty impressive roster at this point, and it'll be interesting to see how some of these kids perform. So, anyways, in my mind, that's what the Kings need to be doing. And to their credit, thought they had a great draft. And it sounds like at some point, they may really start to see some strong prospects coming up. Not sure it'll be this year necessarily, but next year, definitely. So how do the Kings end up doing? My prediction, which based on my lotto winnings isn't worth crap, is I'll say they get 85 points. I think they had 71 last year, maybe 72. So it'll be an improvement. I think McClellan makes a big difference. But they just have some serious holes, and there's going to be some problems with that. But nonetheless, 85 points or so. And then, the next season after that, probably somewhere around the same range, maybe a little more. It just kind of depends on how the kids develop and how many vets they can get rid of. My big surprise for the year, big surprise prediction, second half, Velarde plays. Ha! Deke out.